All right, Larry, here we go.
Yes.
All right. One generation passes away, and another generation comes. But the earth abides forever. The sun also rises, and the sun goes down. Ecclesiastes. What this quote means is life goes on with or without us. But how it continues for the next generation depends on us. The world is hurting as a result of our reckless pollution, and we are already feeling the effects. But further damage can be alleviated or even avoided altogether if we just change our outlook and look into something else, something with incredible potential: nuclear energy. Now, as of right now, we're facing critical levels of climate change from our inefficient energy sources, and this causes many different issues involving political ones and environmental ones. Now, the most well-known problem with fossil fuels is the CO2 pollution and the effect on global temperature. It's not a surprise to all of us, but here's some graphs from NASA, and this shows the CO2 levels in our atmosphere since 400,000 years ago. And as you can see, in the last 399,950 years, we've had no CO2 levels never passing 300 parts per million. But only in the last 50 years, in 1950, it's jumped past 400 parts per million. And we know that CO2 is correlated with the rising global temperature. And we can see it here. In 1884, most of the temperature around the Earth is actually below average, while in 2016, many areas in the world are over 4 degrees hotter than it's supposed to be. And especially in the North Pole, where ice caps are melting, which results in rising sea levels, which causes desertification, all that sort. And yet, our government isn't really doing anything about this problem. Because fossil fuel industries are actually buying out a lot of our senators and a lot of our congressmen. OpenSecrets.org is an advocacy group that tries to keep the fossil fuel industry transparent. And as you can see here, in the last 10 years, since about 2008, over $100 million have been donated to senators and congressmen. And that's a lot of money. I can't really quantify influence, but this isn't even including advertising or super PAC spending, which adds quite a couple hundred millions if you were to keep that into account. And what's worse is that according to Huffington Post, our EPA chief, appointed by Donald Trump, Scott Pruitt, doesn't believe in climate change. He verbally stated, "Climate change isn't real," which is against the consensus of the scientific community, and he wants to dismantle the EPA even though he's running it. He's been suing them for the last 5 years for that matter. And these are our leaders. So something must be done. And one of the best ways to do it is by looking into sustainable or renewable resources. But you gotta ask, why aren't we looking into nuclear energy? At least that's why I'm asking you guys. To me, nuclear energy is very, very underrated. And as you can see here from this graph I got from Statista, the opinion on voters for renewable energy, they ranked all the energy sources and saw how what emphasis voters wanted on these different types of powers. Obviously, coal wants the least emphasis with 51%. Yet somehow nuclear power has the second most less emphasis at 39%, compared to solar power, which is completely reasonable on one end, but very unreasonable in the fact that it's so efficient. People are afraid of it, and that's reasonable because there's a lot of bad news from Chernobyl and other disasters. But in reality, it's relatively safe. As you can see here, this is the estimated mortality rate for all the different types of energy every year. And this is per deaths divided by trillions of kilowatts per hour produced. Obviously, coal has the most with 100,000, but it also makes up most of our electricity. Then there's Then there's solar power, which is only about 440, and that's just rooftop, but only makes a small portion of the global electricity. Then you got nuclear power, which is 90 deaths a year, and 17% of the global energy comes from that. And these amount of deaths are from Chernobyl and Fukushima included, and that was over 30 years ago for one of them. This is a relatively safe type of energy because people are afraid of this idea. Also, this is from Forbes.com. Sorry to mention that. And the crazy part about it is that it's extremely, as I said, it's extremely efficient. With approximate energy production in 2015 in the U.S., 9% of our power comes from nuclear power. And that's a lot of power, and it could be expanded even further, where it could go well past coal, well past petroleum, and potentially outclass natural gas. But we're not using it. And people don't even realize these crazy benefits, especially when it prevents CO2 from being emitted into the air. According to Kurzgesagt, a very famous YouTuber that seeks to educate the public on matters such as this, it has been estimated that over 64 gigatons of greenhouse emissions were prevented from being released through nuclear energy. And if we were to prioritize it more, by mid-21st century, nuclear energy can amount to an additional 82,240 gigatons of greenhouse emissions from reaching the atmosphere. This type of energy can make all the difference. But we just need to actually use it. We need to stop being afraid of it. And especially in these times, because the future is hazy, and there's no cure-all for what we've done to the Earth. But using something as efficient as nuclear energy can make the difference. As it stands, biologists believe 50% of species will be facing extinction by the end of this century, according to The Guardian. Which means a mass extinction is coming very soon if nothing happens. And even the U.S. Defense Secretary, James Mattis, is concerned about climate change. He believes it's impacting stability, and it requires a broader, whole-of-government response to fix this situation from independent. And the way that can happen is through innovation, which we've seen before with the space race. That's how we got a man on the moon. That's how we have automobiles. And we could save ourselves from this situation if we were to look more into nuclear energy. None of our nuclear reactors are up to date. All of them are 30 plus years. And yet, we're not using it. And especially when we have power such this theory called the thorium reactor, which I won't go too in depth about. This is from Energy Thorium, and it can be renewable because it recycles the type of materials used to produce energy. And it could create, with 1 ton of thorium, we could create 200 tons worth of energy from uranium, and with 3,500,000 tons of coal, we could produce that same amount of energy with thorium, with 1 ton of thorium. We have the ability to make a change through energy, but we're not doing it. But we can if we just look into it. The reality of the situation is bleak, but doing nothing means we accept a horrible future. Nuclear energy isn't perfect, but it's our best shot at preservation. And knowing it isn't evil is all that we need. We need people to stop being afraid, and just by telling people that it's not as scary as it is, makes a difference. And if you want to go above and beyond, contact our senators, and then they must heed the public, because that's who they serve. In the end, the only way we can change the future is if we change our outlook. And besides, we should at least look into this research because it's promising, and it might be the only way we can save this planet.